Hey everybody, welcome to the program. This is the Otherppl Show. I'm Brad Listi. I'm in Los Angeles. It is Friday. Hope you're doing okay out there. It's going to be a flashback episode today, as it is every Friday. I will be digging into the archives and sharing with you an outtake from an episode out of the past. Today, an outtake from episode 264, my conversation with author Jacinda Townsend. It first aired on March 30th, 2014. Jacinda Townsend is the author of the novels Mother Country, available from Graywolf Press, and Saint Monkey, available from Norton and Company. Jacinda is a graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop, and she teaches creative writing at Brown University. An outtake from episode 264, my conversation with Jacinda Townsend, is coming up in just a moment. A reminder before we get going that I do a weekly email newsletter. I would love it if you signed up over at bradlisti.substack.com. It's free. Likewise, there is an Otherppl Patreon community. If you listen to this show regularly, if you get something from it, if you appreciate the work that I do, I hope you will consider joining the Otherppl Patreon community over at patreon.com/otherppl-pod. Today's episode is brought to you by Mary Sue Rucci Books, publisher of the debut novel The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan. The Storm We Made is a national bestseller. It is the official February pick of the Otherppl Book Club, a sweeping epic about an unlikely spy and a secret love affair set in Malaysia during World War II. I'm going to be talking with Vanessa Chan on this podcast in the days ahead. One more time, the book is called The Storm We Made, the best-selling debut novel by Vanessa Chan, available from Mary Sue Rucci Books. All right, so once again, today's flashback episode features an outtake from episode 264, my conversation with author Jacinda Townsend. It first aired on March 30th, 2014. Please know that if you like what you hear in this flashback and you want to listen to the full conversation with Jacinda Townsend, you can do that. It's in the feed. Just look for episode 264. All episodes of the Otherppl Show are available to listeners. All right? I think we're ready to go. Here I am in conversation about a decade ago with Jacinda Townsend.
One of the things I have in my big messy house is I have a 1949 Acrosonic piano, which is it was top of the line for Baldwin at that time. And I bought it. I really bought it for my kids, but neither one of them will play. So one day it reverts back to me, and I'll play.
Okay, well, this is good to know because, like, I grew up in a house. Like, my parents didn't even have a stereo. It was like Footloose. I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't like they were anti-music, but there was just no music. Like, they weren't. They didn't have a record collection. They never went through that phase in their lives. They never like really fell in love with music in the way that I did. Yeah. So, but my great
What kind of music?
For me?
Yeah. What kind of music do you like?
Oh, I mean, you know, it's hard to pinpoint. I think especially these days because the way that we listen to music has changed so much since I was a kid. You know? Back in the day, like I used to, when I was like up until I was like 20, I had like cassette tapes. And I had hundreds of them. And I used to listen to full albums and deliver pizzas and drive around listening to music, and I would make mixtapes and do all that. And now I just I tend to buy track by track, or I'll go, I don't know. It seems messier. It seems less concentrated than it used to be, which might just be a function of my life. But I like everything. Every classical, jazz, rock, you know, hip hop, anything, and whatever sounds good, you know. But you know, saying that you have the piano in your house and that your kids still won't play. Like, I have always had this fantasy that, like, I'm going to have a music room in my house. I'm going to put it there so that my children grow up playing. They can fulfill some sort of, you know, unfulfilled rock star fantasy that I never got to actualize.
Exactly.
But they're not playing. They want nothing to do with it.
They want nothing to do with that. They play at gunpoint. One of them plays cello and the other plays violin. So I managed to convince them that they were rebelling against me by not playing this piano and have them play other things.
See, that's what I'm going to
so
get.
I think
that's a good idea. I'm going to get like a French horn and put it in like a room. And then be like, fine, if you don't want this, here's an electric guitar, whatever.
Exactly.
Oh.
So what were you saying about your great-grandfather?
Oh, he was a professional piano player. That was his deal. He was.
Oh.
So, I mean, we got it in my family. It's somewhere in there, but, my ancestors are from Louisiana, so he played piano professionally, and, like, it skipped generations. And, like, I have this, I have no idea if I could play because I never actually sat down to try, but I have this theory that because I wound up writerly that somehow he's in there somewhere, and then there's something. Right. I like to believe that there's something musical. It's just too depressing to think that there's nothing musical in my bloodline at all. Like it would just be.
Right.
It seems like such a gift to be able to sing and play an instrument. It seems like the ultimate.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's cool that you can.
Definitely.
Like you can sit down at a piano and just play for a while.
I can. I'm a little rusty on reading music, but I can still play. So yeah, I mean, and it's interesting what you said about it skipping generations. And I read once that almost all successful musicians, or many really successful musicians, are third generation musicians, like exactly third, not second, not 2.5, but they're third generation musicians. So. Like, I think Yo-Yo Ma is an example. So it takes, my kids, I mean, bless their hearts, they're going to have to go one step further, But it's interesting that you say, it skipped you with your great-grandfather. But now I think that means you have to start again. Like, you have to do something.
Right. It's going to be
and then your grandchildren will be.
It's going to be a steep climb. I just, there's not an ounce of vocal talent. I wish I could sing. God, life would be so much easier. I would have had so many more girlfriends in high school if I could have done this. So where are you from? You're from Kentucky, correct?
I am from Kentucky. I'm from South Central Kentucky, actually, about 4 hours south of here. So, I mean, oddly enough, it's not that similar to here. In some ways it is, but in many ways, culturally, it is not.
What's the difference?
Well, I think Kentucky is a far more insular place. Not too many people come and not too many people go. I think it is a place that is far more sort of clannish in the family clan way, and I think there's actually like a historical reason for that, which is that when people first came over here and settled this area, the people who were from Wales and Scotland they collected themselves in West Virginia and Kentucky, and they just kind of settled in these hills and kept their clans together, literally, Yeah. Whereas I think Indiana's a much more kind of like westward expansion sort of state. So
people passing through Indiana on the way to St. Louis or something.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, though, I grew up in Indiana, part of my childhood, and I remember like knowing some people from Kentucky, especially when like friends of mine got into college and went to IU, and there were some people who crossed the state line to go to IU, and people from Kentucky are hardcore. Like I remember, like they're the kind of guys, like there were a couple guys from Kentucky who would like just get like so drunk and like have a fist fight for like fun, and then wake up the next day and it was like fine. I was, but like a real fist fight, not like play, like it looked like it hurt.
Right.
And I kind of
that sounds about right.
Yeah, and I kind of had a similar experience with friends of mine from Kansas City, which I also seemed to breed like a particularly crazy, and not necessarily in a bad way, just kind of like there's just there's something wild about Kentucky, I feel like.
Yes, there is. I remember, I would come back on the bus from, I went to college in Boston, and sort of the further west of us went, the wilder the people would be on the bus, and when the people who got kicked off the Greyhound bus, and I don't know if you've ever witnessed this, but it's always hilarious when someone has done something that wrong. You know, we were south of Pennsylvania. Always it was those people who got kicked off the Greyhound bus.
What do you have to do to get kicked off a Greyhound bus?
You could smoke. Once I was on a bus and this man had a hatchet in his backpack, and I mean I just couldn't believe it. Like, he really expected to ride 3 hours with a hatchet in his backpack, and the driver's like, no. Yeah. Either get off the bus or put it underneath, and he didn't want to put it underneath. So,
for God's
what was
sake.
he up to?
Yeah,
I know.
I know. You're not going to sleep. You're not going to sleep a wink if you're sitting next to the guy with the hatchet.
Exactly.
Head on a swivel. Oh, God. Okay, so let's talk about growing up in South Central Kentucky. What was the name of your hometown? Where are you from?
I grew up in Bowling Green, which is the home of the Corvette plant and Western Kentucky University.
Okay, yeah.
It's not the mountainous part of Kentucky, but the hilly part. So the Western's mascot is the Hilltopper.
Right.
And it's a beautiful place. I love to go back. In fact, I'm spending my sabbatical there. So it's just was a great place to grow up. Just like
I don't know, wide open spaces. Did you have like an outdoorsy upbringing?
Yeah, very much so. When I grew up, actually, when I was a kid, the Corvette plant wasn't there yet. So I spent a lot of time. I remember I went to there was this wide open field, and I would just like lie there and like watch the planes go by, you know, and this was before the traffic became an insurmountable burden and there was noise pollution, but it was just beautiful. Grass, woods, great stuff.
Oh man. So, what did your folks do? Do you come from artistic people?
Not at all. My mother is a high school teacher, although she's an English teacher, so that's maybe where the literary stuff came from.
Sure.
But my dad is actually a business executive, or he was at General Electric. So, not artsy in the least. I don't think they understand at all what happened, who they raised.
They're still reeling in shock. They're still trying to
Exactly. They really are. And I was, it was interesting. I don't think they really, until my book came out, I don't think they understood what I did all day, I think they thought I just kind of sat here and, I don't know, certainly not clean the house, but whatever they imagined I was doing.
I hear that over and over again from people that I talk with for this show, is that people just have people who are not writers or who haven't really, I guess, spent time thinking about it or talking to people who do it or whatever it is. They have a hard time understanding the life. You got to produce I guess you got to just show them books. And even then it can sometimes be hard to get taken seriously. Like until I don't know what has to happen, whether it's book sales or like you're on television. I think you have to be on television, or the book has to be turned into a movie, and then things get real.
Then people will know you're human. Yes. No, is your kid artistic at all, or is he going to be like a Republican or?
She, it's actually it's a little girl. I don't know. I think she's going to be funny. She's wordy, she's really verbal for her age, I think. She would have to be with her parent. I mean, she's not going to be a mathematician with her bloodlines. Like, neither my wife or I are going to be, handing down any great, like, scientific genes or whatever. But, it's hard to say. I tend to think, like, I have this thing that, like, I want her to have a sense of humor because I think you need that in life. And I think that's, like, I don't know. I hope I know how to teach her that, but I don't know if she'll be artistic. She loves to draw. She loves to read, but she's only 3. We'll see. And as to her politics, like I'll have to sit her down and ask her tonight. I have no idea. Like I hope she's open. Well, I hope she's open-minded.
Yes, I think you can tell by how she shares things on the playground, right?
Yeah, she's pretty. I mean, she's not too possessive. I mean, like there's certain stuffed animals. There's certain stuffed animals that she has like an emotional attachment to. There's a chicken. There's a little chicken called Chicky that I think if you try to take it from her, she's gonna shiv you, but other things, candy, food, other animals, I think she's pretty generous. So we'll see. But,
cool.
So did you grow up with, siblings in Kentucky, or were you an only, or?
I have a sister who is 9.5 years younger than me, so I was an only child for a long, long time, but she's now, 10 years younger than me, which is, 19, because I'm 29, and she lives in D.C., and she's an animal rights attorney, so she's probably even more confounding to my parents than I am.
But let me ask, do you have I know 9.5 years, there's probably a long spell of your childhood and adolescence and you went away to college where you don't know your sibling all that well. Have you guys had, been able to get to know one another with that much of an age gap?
Wow, that's a really good question. I feel like there was a point, because I went to college a little early. So when I went to college, I was 16 and she was 6. There was a point, though, when I came back home from the summer where we became close. And we became close enough to actually have some knockdown, drag-out fights, believe it or not.
There you go.
And I think, I think at that point we did, unfortunately, I think there's also, I think we're close, but I think when there's that much of an age difference between kids, sometimes there's this mom thing that happens. I'm your sister, but when you're, 11, 12, 13 years old, I'm kind of old enough to be your guardian, and sometimes I have to be. And I think, those are some years of tension when there's that much of an age difference, because I wasn't her mother. I just thought I was,
Right.
So if you asked her, I think you'd get a really different story.
I'm going to have to I'll get her on the line. I'll get her on the line after I'm done talking with you. So, when did you start to show as a writer? When you were a young kid? I mean, you said you went off to college at age 16. Were you good student, advanced, skipping grades kind of thing?
I skipped grades when I was really little, and then, I can't say I was ever this great student because until I started seriously writing, I didn't really know what interested me. I had no clue. I went to college. I majored in poli-sci. I took one creative writing. I'm sorry?
Where did you go to school when you were 16?
I went to Harvard, and I thought that I was going to be a politician. So I majored in poli-sci, and I wasn't really that happy. I was one of the worst students who ever went to Harvard.
Wait, how did you get in? You're 16 years old and you've graduated high school. So
yes,
it's not.
I was 16. Yeah.
Okay, so then you just decided Harvard's one on my list, and I'm going to apply.
I did. I wanted to go. I was a lot like. I wouldn't say my novel's autobiographical, but I was a lot like these girls in the sense that I just had to leave home, and it had to be as far away as possible. So I applied to colleges around there, but I wasn't serious. I mean, my parents had no clue how serious I wasn't about that, Everywhere I was serious about was at least 600 miles away.
So what was it? Was it I just need to strike out on my own, see some new stuff, or was there unhappiness, adolescent unhappiness driving it?
I think I felt very overprotected, and I think I was an incredibly overprotected child, and perhaps in part because I was graduating so early, I felt like if I didn't make this a big move, I was going to pay for it in that sense of, I would still be susceptible to this overprotection. So I knew it had to be a big break, right? Do it big.
And
did you go away?
Yeah,
far?
I did. Yeah, I almost went to Indiana. I was signed up, I had my name on the door, and I made a last minute decision. It suddenly occurred to me, I don't want to, because I basically would have been redoing high school, that was, everybody went to IU, and at the last minute I was like, no, I'm going to go to Colorado, and I went off to Boulder.
Right? Nice.
Which,
it's a beautiful place. place.
Beautiful. I didn't do much, I didn't do much studying, but it was a fun 4 years, and just a great town to live in, and just like gave me like an appreciation for the outdoors that I probably would not have had otherwise. I met a ton of people that it's a big decision where you go, and suddenly you're at Harvard and you're on this campus. You're 16 years old. Like, did that age difference being a freshman? Like, because 2 years makes a big difference at that age,
Right.
The difference between 29 and 31. Nothing. But the difference between 16 and 18, I'm sure you kind of felt.
Well, only in retrospect. I think at the time, because I had done the skipping so early, I felt like socially I was their age. And then when I think back, I was in this freshman seminar, and my professor had no idea how old I was. And he was making me White Russians that he had us over to his house. And I think, my goodness, I can't imagine one of my kids at 16 going to this guy's house and he's making them like hard liquor drinks, But yeah, so I mean, in retrospect, I can't believe I did it. But at the time, no, I felt like, go away, young lady, go north.
All right, you guys, there we have it. That was this week's flashback. An outtake from episode 264, my conversation with Jacinda Townsend. It first aired on March 30th, 2014. A reminder that you can listen to the full conversation with Jacinda Townsend if you so desire. Just look for episode 264 wherever you get your podcasts. All episodes of The Other People Show are available to listeners. You can find Jacinda on the internet at jacindatownsend.com. Follow her on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to this show wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. Follow the program on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. You can sign up for free for my weekly email newsletter over at bradlisti.substack.com. Join the Other People Patreon community at patreon.com/otherpplpod. You can also sign up for the Other People Book Club, if that sounds good. It's just $9.99 a month. You get a new book delivered to your door every 30 days. I interview book club authors on this program. So if that sounds good, head on over to otherppl.com and sign up for the book club. If you have a couple of minutes and you want to do me a quick favor, please give this show a rating wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. Rate the podcast, review the podcast. It helps the program find new listeners. If you would like to get some apparel, an Other People t-shirt or a sweatshirt, you can do that at otherppl.com. And last but not least, I have a book out. My latest book is called Be Brief and Tell Them Everything. It is a novel available now in trade paperback, ebook, and audiobook editions. I narrate the audiobook. So if you want to read my book, you can read my book one more time. It is called Be Brief and Tell Them Everything. All right, so coming up on Sunday on The Other People Show, I will be airing the 900th author interview in this program's history. My guest will be Leslie Jamison, the author of a critically acclaimed new memoir called Splinters. Very excited to talk with Leslie Jamison and to share that conversation with all of you. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.